Welcome to the Tales of Steve with your host, Steve. I present to thee, r/AskReddit. Zookeepers of Reddit, how are the animals acting differently now that there are no visitors to the zoo? Let's get it on. Most of our animals are happy as long as we can keep their routines, feeding times etc. For some they need a little extra. We do public encounters with our koalas, wombats, and snakes among others, so we spend an hour or so a day cuddling and handling these animals to keep them happy. A few of our koalas really fret if they don't get their cuddles. Otherwise we just try to continue to spend time with animals that are expecting human interaction, and of course we can take things for walks around the place like I'm sure you've seen at other zoos. Our wombats love a run and sniff, dingoes as well. Edit. Thanks all for the interest, questions, and remarks. Thanks also for the awards. I don't work at Australia Zoo for those of you asking. I do live on Kangaroo Island and our facility is pretty easy to find with some light searching. It is a privilege to work with wildlife each and every day, and it's something I take very seriously, but still appreciate the jokes and humor from everyone. If you have specific questions, it's perhaps best to DM me, rip inbox, otherwise they'll probably get lost in the comments. Thanks again. Your job is to cuddle koalas, and I'm stuck in home all alone. For a lot of our animals, having the ability to interact with guests is actually extremely important. Even for primates to be able to play with kids through the glass, they are missing out on a lot of enrichment. Guests keep a lot of the monkeys entertained. I watch our guests all day long show our marmosets and capuchins selfie cameras, and they love to see their reflection. Guests will also show videos on their phones to animals, and the monkeys totally enjoy it. We have a rescue cockatoo named Ro who sings "Row, row, row your boat" to guests. When little kids dance and sing it to her, she gets really excited and feeds off their energy. So do our other cockatoos on exhibit. But now without guests to show off for, every now and then when it's quiet we'll hear her start "row, row, row," and then she stop and huffs a bit and gets really quiet and sad because she has no one to sing to. Some of our animals really miss having kids to show off for. You also have to remember that animals in zoos for the most part have grown up totally accustomed to being around people 24/7. They're not wild animals at all really. They've grown up in a very different social dynamic. Quite a few animals get noticeably depressed in the winter months every year when we have few guests, and then perk up in the spring when we get busy. In our local zoo the apes started to miss the visitors, so they brought in an artist in who's now just painting in the empty monkey house so the apes have someone to watch. Due to temporary staff cuts, they no longer have the people to regularly walk the wombats. Some of the wombats are holding the keepers personally responsible. Imagine having a 20 kilograms chunk of muscle with big rodent teeth mad at you. I'm an aquarium keeper, and I've certainly noticed a change. Fish are not as stressed as they used to be, as there are no longer children stomping around and banging on glass screaming "Nemo, Nemo, it's Nemo" at every clownfish. We brought some of our younger penguins down to let them watch the fish, and they were intrigued but confused as to why they couldn't catch them through the glass. Our octopus has become much more friendly as well, and instead of hiding all day from people, enjoys playing with small baby toys or solving food puzzles. It's been nice. I wish there were guidelines people had to sign to behave at zoos before entering, but at the same time, they are the lifeline we so desperately need to keep functioning. Edit. This post has gotten more love than any other post I have ever made, so I'm going to capitalize on it. Now more than ever, zoos and zoo animals need your help. I understand that it is a time of financial disparity for a lot of people, myself included. But we as humans will be fine and overcome this. Those who cannot are the species we help to conserve at AskReddit facilities. Without people having interest in wildlife, zoos themselves could now face extinction. If you have a local zoo, or a zoo you just adore, please, donate. Something as small as a pizza for the keepers of your favorite animals, or a donation the price of general admittance, all the way up to buying a membership or making a significant donation, goes so far to help us stay employed and caring for all our individuals. We are doing our best during this crisis to bring you the best experience we can so you can social distance, too. If you like what you see and have the ability, you can be sure that your donation is appreciated by every single keeper working through this time. Fellow octopus keeper here. Without the crowd scaring her into her cave, our GPO has gotten straight up feisty. She's so active, I've encouraged our parrot keepers to go past her when taking the birds on walks just for a little extra visual stimulation. She's got quite the love affair with one of the cockatoos. My girlfriend is a zookeeper and animal behaviorist. She says their animals are becoming stressed. One of their African gray birds has been plucking his own feathers. She also mentioned that because they can't touch many of the animals due to the virus potentially spreading to another zookeeper, many of the animals are looking and acting depressive, not eating well, etc. I'm late to the thread, so I'm sure this will get buried, but I work for a very large, very busy Oz zoo. I work with the ambassador animals, so they are animals that are very used to the public. Pretty much like what everyone else has said, the animals are mostly confused that there aren't any people. Our petting zoo animals in particular are super needy. The second they see or hear us, they all come running over and start crying for attention. We're trying to give all the animals as much attention as possible, but we're down to a bare bones crew, so it's not as much as we would like. What I wanted to add, though, because I think it's incredibly interesting, is that we are collecting fecal samples from some of the animals to be tested for cortisol levels, which is a pretty good indicator of stress levels. That way, when guests come back, we can take samples for comparison to see how much guests impact stress. I think it's really cool that we're taking this opportunity to see what we can learn about how guests impact the animals, and to see if there are potentially things we can do even better to improve the lives of the animals in our care. We were really hoping to do some behavioral studies too about things like activity levels, amount of the enclosure being utilized, etc. that are also important considerations for their welfare, but unfortunately we just don't have the time or staffing. There's a bit of a balance of different behaviors that is kinda interesting. With no visitors there is more time for enrichment, to get more creative with said enrichment, trialing new things, and exposure to enrichment that has to be supervised, which the animals are loving. Then there are certain animals that do seem to miss having public around. Our younger, 5 years old, African penguins are really seeming to miss being able to swim at the glass and interact with people. Higher intelligence animals, we have had to come up with new interactions, lots of new training going on because they are missing the variety and variability of interactions with the public. The snakes don't give a fuck though. My wife works at the gift shop for our zoo, and the other day we had to go move some stuff around in the store because due to some heavy rains, it had flooded a bit. Of course we took a lap around the empty park, other than the keepers and few maintenance workers, and found that all the animals were really active and playful. A lot of them seemed really curious about us too. I'm sure they get used to seeing crowds every day and were starving for attention. I take care of fish, but mostly jellyfish. The jellies don't give a single fuck. It's been nice for me though because I can turn most of their display lights off so less algae grows and I have to do less scrubbing. My actual fish don't care. The beluga whales were screeching at the cleaning crew the other day, which was hilarious. I don't work with the whales, but it seems like they enjoy, or are at least interested in, seeing others around. As a zookeeper coordinator, I've been working at the now closed zoo almost every day for the past month. Animals that are free roaming, peacocks, iguanas, are more active, and follow keepers around like they usually do with visitors. Most of the others don't show much change in behavior. Although birds like swans and flamingos are using the edges of their habitats more. True. I haven't found much change in pets or those animals that are being well taken care of. I have noticed that this has mostly affected stray animals whose only source of food was by eating all they found on the streets/parks. Since nobody is around, they don't get food. Sad face. I do my best by feeding like 10 to 12 stray dogs who come to eat at our farm. It makes my day watching them eat. Kissing face with smiling eyes. I work on an activity farm. There is a 22-year-old Shire horse. He acts like a dick when there are customers around. With no customers, he's actually still a dick. That being said, he's still awesome. Edit, I've been asked what he does when there are customers. Basically, if he sees any customer feeding any other animal in the large barn where he hangs out in the day, he will stare at them and stomp his front hoof on the ground. That guarantees they look at him. If they don't immediately come over to feed him, he will start kicking the heavy metal bars that divide his area and the pen next door. This makes one hell of a noise. And he will keep it up, all whilst staring at the person with the food. If they feed him, then he rewards them by slobbering all over their hands as he takes the food. Also, at the end of the day, he is really good at telling the time. He knows when we close and what time he should be released from the barn and taken to the field/stables where he spends the night. If he isn't let out bang on time, he starts kicking the shit out of the gate at the back of his pen. This is a big metal gate and it sounds like someone playing a giant glockenspiel with a sledgehammer. He will keep this up until it is opened. Some customers are just scared to hand feed him. He is massive and his mouth is big enough to easily fit someone's hand in. Some customers come up to me with their bag of food and ask me if I will feed him, because he keeps staring at me, but I'm a bit too nervous to feed him. I happily oblige. I love that ornery old bastard. I'm on day 25 of working at a closed zoo. I work with great apes, and their behavior has changed a bit. They are generally very interactive with the public, so they are seeking even more attention than usual from us. Some of them were suspicious at first of the overwhelming silence outside now. They were climbing up high and scanning the area looking for everyone. Edit, I forgot to mention the wild animals. We are in a much larger park, and wild animals wander in all the time, but always scatter when the crowds roll in. Now, there's bucks just walking around, raccoons and foxes out in the middle of the day. And the squirrels, my god, the squirrels. Horse trainer/barn manager here. My farm has 46 horses, about half are privately owned and boarded with us. Like most farms across the country, we are completely shut down to all but essential staff. The horses are mostly pretty happy to eat, hang out, and do horse things. We keep our horses turned out 24/7, which helps them remain healthy, happy, moving, and socializing. They are starting to lose muscling at this point, with being work/ridden. Months or years of conditioning just disappearing by the day. But it will come back once they are all in work again. But I can tell that they are missing human interaction. My personal riding horse was giving me the cold shoulder yesterday, probably because of the lack of attention. I have been trying to give the boarded horses extra attention. I am sure their owners are missing them terribly right now. They all seem to lean in a little more when I brush them these days. Edited to add the customary thank you to the kind Redditor for the award. My first. It made my day, nay, my week. Pun intended. Thank you. Not a zookeeper, but I hear the lions a lot more from my house now. Weirdly reassuring to wake up to and realize the world is still going on. Wait, what? Do you live on the plains of Africa, next to the GW Zoo, or do you own lions? Bow before the king. Finally a thread I can answer. Not a whole lot of change, but animals definitely missing out some enrichment of seeing guests, especially the otters that follow the kids in the glass underwater. Takin, maned wolves, bison, gibbons, bops, lions, etc. all are about the same. Some of our animals that are skittish have been standing closer to the fence where guests usually are, zebras, gazelle, which is nice. It's kinda this weird balance of being both more and less stressed. On the one side, I don't have to worry about keeper talks or BTS tours, and I have more time to get everything done and spend more time with animals. On the other side, we're skeleton crewed and there's less of us to care for the whole zoo, so I'm working a lot more in areas I don't usually cover as often. There's one kangaroo that still tries to box me while the emu is shifting. The one peacock still really doesn't like taking his medications. Of course, I have noticed that the crows in the city are behaving a bit differently as well and are being a lot braver, lol. I've taken to feeding the birds since this whole thing started, and the crows used to be pretty okay with the seagulls barreling in and talking food cause there was always more than enough. Now I see crows scouting and scooping up multiple pieces of food at a time to bring wherever they're hiding the flock, risking getting snapped at by rabid seagulls. I would only rarely see crows take the food away, and it was always after they'd eaten plenty. Now 9/10 times they're squirreling it away. I've been watching the Taronga zoo cams, and the seals definitely keep trying to look through the glass for people while the tigers will pace for 40 minutes straight in front of the viewing window. Seals and tiger be like, where are all the damn clowns? Not a zookeeper here, but there was a story on the local news that the apes at the local zoo are apparently very bored because they don't have any people doing stupid things to watch anymore. I guess we are the zoo. Before this thread it never occurred to me that the animals also observe us. I don't work at a zoo, but the horse farm I manage, the horses won't leave me alone while I'm in their pastures. Normally they'll come up to say hi and get a nose kiss, but now I can't get anything done cause they want all of my attention. Same. The first few days they seemed almost relieved and they seemed to enjoy the break. Now they're practically trying to get in my car with me when I leave to go home, lol. I work at a very well-known and heavily visited zoo. I work with ambassador animals, and it's nice to get a chance to take animals to areas of the zoo they wouldn't normally get a chance to go to because of traffic, etc. But, the free-ranging geese, man. They are getting mean and territorial. Literal bridge trolls. They might have the hardest time adjusting when all the people come back and they can't control every pathway. Typical geese behavior, from the 3 at my local park that had to be locked in a pen because when free they choose a path and attacked everything coming on their turf, up to cars, not to mention kids, dogs, and more. Edit. My most upvoted comment is about murderous geese. Geese are so mean, lmao. One time when I was in middle school I was riding my bike near a pond, and there was a turtle in the road. I went to get it and put it near the pond it was heading towards, and this mean-ass goose saw me from the field on the other side of the road. It was a pretty far distance, I thought, but it starts hauling ass way faster than it looked like it could go, furiously hissing at me the whole way. Picked up the turtle and sprinted to the pond. Stupid goose even tried to chase me for a little bit after I got on my bike. They were everywhere near my school too, and they would sometimes get near the outdoor track after school when it wasn't crowded and hiss at people running. Geese are jerks. A friend of mine's brother had a guard goose, not at all native to the area, lol, he named Napoleon. Thing fulfilled pretty much the same role as a tweaky little dog that can't do much damage, but will alert the fuck out of you if there's anything resembling an intruder. And then on top of that, I feel like if anyone actually did try to case his house, there's a bit of a "if this guy's weird enough to have a goose, am I willing to bet he doesn't have a gun" factor going on there too. The majority of our display birds could care less, however our birds that do flights outside or routinely meet guests and do more interactive behaviors with the public have definitely noticed, and they are not cool with there being no guests around. Of course I can only guess, and while this is a bit anthropomorphic, I don't think they understand the change and seem somewhat hesitant to enter a new environment, to them, as we try to maintain their behavioral skills. One of the macaws who is also excited to fly is now always looking around. Pretty sure she expects for 50 to 100 people to be watching her. I have a friend with a parrot and I'm convinced that little bossy fucker loves having an audience. He is a complete attention whore. If he regularly had a huge audience, he'd miss it if it suddenly disappeared. Probably. I hope you all like these wholesome Reddit stories to get by this crappy part of 2020. Now, if you'd excuse me, I have to stop my friend before he sets me up with a chick named Karen when the quarantine blows over. Wish me luck.